We'll start and we'll let Mrs. join us. Since we have a quorum present, I would like to call the meeting to order at 8:01. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All righty. The Board of Education accepts the minutes of the Board of Education meeting held on December 9, 2020 and December 18, 2020 as detailed in the Friday mailing.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Reed.
Second.
I'm sorry.
Mrs. Zareska.
Seconded by Mrs. Dereska. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. The Board of Education acknowledges receipt of the Treasurer's Report for the month of November 2020 as detailed in the Friday mailing.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Reed. Seconded by Mr. Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I'll turn the meeting over to the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Kami.
Where's whose shoes?
I'm sorry?
Okay, so we are going to have a presentation by Dr. Calamaris. Before we do, I just want to share a few things. One is an update. Our Chromebooks to our 4th and 5th graders are in the process of being distributed. Currently, Steele and Plaza have distributed all of those Chromebooks. Meadow begins Friday. Brookside is about 65% of the way done. And Lennox is beginning distribution tomorrow for 5th graders. I announced the community that we started to do some COVID testing as a pilot last week and this week. It has gone pretty well so far. It's been a lot of work. I want to thank Dr. Robinson for helping spearhead that initiative, and Sarah Patrone, who's been involved in that as well. We are in the process, as I mentioned yesterday to our families, we are in the process of coming up with a schedule to open up testing for our students and our in-person students and their families who are students of the Baldwin Public Schools. A letter should be going out to the community, hopefully, definitely by Friday, to share that information. The tests that are going to be made available are low nasal swabs. They're called pediatric swabs. They are not the high swabs that we've all heard about. The testing is free. They will ask for an insurance card. They will ask, if you don't have insurance, they will ask for a Social Security number so that they can get reimbursed from the CARES Act. I want to just make it very clear that we are not doing this because we are in a yellow, red, or orange zone. We are doing this because of the experiences that some of us have had going to neighborhood testing sites. And by neighborhood, I mean all of Nassau County and part of Suffolk County for that matter, where the waits are 3.5 and 4 hours, or where you just can't get in at all. And so if we are preaching, or if we are being preached to that, testing, you have to have a place where you can get tested. And so this is being offered to the community as a convenience. It is not necessary. It is not an obligation. It's not a requirement. It really is just the district going above and beyond for the Baldwin community so that they have access to testing during this time. The other thing that I want to share, two things. One is related, and that's that there are, some questions about out there, which I addressed the last time that we were together. The question of why haven't the Baldwin schools closed? And the answer to that is because schools are meant to be open. And the schools that you are seeing closing are closing because there are either so many positive cases or there are so many close contacts that there are not enough adults to keep the schools open. And so I want to make that very clear. I can tell you that Dr. Gallo, for example, has been working around the clock to make sure that our staffing is such that we can keep our schools open and keep our kids in school and keep learning happening for our in-person and our remote students. So the fact that we have not been closed or have not switched to remote learning is not a negative, it's an absolute positive. And I just want to make that clear to everyone. Last thing, I want to share that our students at Baldwin High School at Schubert were the recipients of a second place award for the Simon Youth Foundation Orange Grad Cap Challenge. They came out second of all of the academies that Simon Youth Foundation either sponsors or runs. And because they were number 2 in the country, they received a $100 credit at an office, OmniSource or Office Zone, and also credits toward what they call enhancement grants. It was that enhancement grant that helped us to redesign the police science classroom at Schubert School last year. So I want to congratulate our students at Baldwin High School at Schubert. They did a phenomenal job. And they deserve the recognition coming their way. So congratulations. With that, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Mignella to introduce Dr. Calamaris.
Thank you, Dr. Cami. Good evening, Board of Education, community members. Tonight gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Jimmy Calamaris, who is our Director of World Languages and ENL. Dr. Calamaris will speak to you tonight about our World Language Program. He'll give you an overview of the changes in the standards, as well as show you some student work and share the wonderful outcomes that our students are producing. So without further ado, Dr. Calamaris, the Zoom meeting is yours.
Thank you very much. Buonanotte a tutti. I'm very thankful for the opportunity to speak with you this evening to share some information about our World Language Program. Before I begin, I just want to let you know that you might hear these terms. You'll hear world language, you'll hear foreign language. At times you might even hear the word LOT. These are all different terms that mean the same thing, which is instruction in a language other than English. I'd first like to start by sharing this graphic with you to give you an overview of what our World Language Program looks like here in Baldwin. Our program is a grade 7 through 12 program, and we have 2 tracks. One of them is for our native students. We have a very large Spanish-speaking population, and so we have a specific track for those students, which the purpose is to enhance skills that are already there or to build upon skills to gain academic proficiency. Whereas our new language program is designed for students that have very limited or no knowledge of a different language. And the languages that we offer here in the district are French, Italian, and Spanish. We follow the New York State guidelines, and we begin world language instruction no later than 7th grade. And as you can see here, we go up to the 12th grade, and we have in our new language track, we have the Regents track, which is our college level track, which concludes in 5R, where students can be dually enrolled in our St. John's College Advantage program for dual enrollment credit, or they can be in the honors track, which will lead to taking the AP exam. So one of the things that you might be hearing a lot, or the latest buzz in the world of world language instruction, is the new ACTFL standards, or they've actually been around for a while, but what New York State has recently done is that they have decided to adopt the ACTFL standards, which ACTFL stands for the American Council of Teaching a Foreign Language. And for years, the standards have been talking about communication, culture, connections, comparisons, and communities. Interestingly enough, as I mentioned before, New York State, they haven't revised their standards since 1990 or early 1990s. And so in the absence of leadership, world language teachers have gravitated to their professional organization. And in an interesting twist, New York State has decided to now adopt those standards because they have worked so well by the people that are using them. And actually the ACTFL is our national standards for world language. So what New York State has done is that they've taken those 5 C's and they've reworked them. And the first thing that I want you to notice is that they've emphasized communication, so much so that they've created 3 separate standards around those. And the 3 modes of communication that are the most important in world language instruction is the interpretive communication. That means how well does someone read and interpret text? Or how well does someone listen to a conversation and interpret what the speaker is saying? The second standard is interpersonal. So that is engaging in conversations with another individual. And the third standard is presentational. How does somebody speak in a coherent manner, or how does someone present information in written form? The remaining C's, so culture and comparisons, are present in the new state standards, but the remaining 2, communities and connections, the state has essentially deemed that they have been, and they have embedded them in the other standards. So for our purposes, really, communication, culture, and comparisons are going to be the driving force behind the work that gets done in New York State in world language. I wanted to share this graphic with you as well to tell you what our targets are. Down here at the bottom, you will see that I've included the checkpoints. In New York State, we have 3 checkpoints. The checkpoint A, which happens in the middle school or at the end of middle school. We have the checkpoint B, which happens at the end of 10th grade. And then we have the checkpoint C, which is at the AP level. And I want you to notice that they say novice and intermediate. So just as a point of comparison, even and a point of clarification, even though I know that Baldwin students are advanced in many ways, the language that we actually are using and the target for our students is actually to be intermediate high. And again, just as a point of comparison, it's only students that have engaged in undergraduate level work, which means reading literature, writing compositions, doing linguistics in a specific language, actually attain advanced fluency. And so our high school students, as we see in this graphic, because we offer a 6-year program, they leave the high school at this intermediate mid or intermediate high level. Okay. And this other graphic just reiterates what I said. So here we have the students take the checkpoint A exam. In 10th grade, students take the checkpoint B exam. And then in 12th grade, students take the AP exam. Okay. And just very briefly, one of and we're going to see examples of this. When we're talking about at the novice level, the most important thing is at the middle school, we're talking about rehearsed, practiced, or memorized dialogues, idiomatic phrases, familiar topics of conversation. So when students are beginning to learn language, the language is picked up in this manner. And we want students to be able to communicate in basic conversations using vocabulary and sentences that they've rehearsed and practiced in class. what differentiates that from the intermediate level is at the intermediate level, we start to see that students create their own language in the form of short sentences or series of sentences. And they are able to provide more of their own thoughts and expressions, as we see here. So they can express their own thoughts. And then what this shows you down here is the checkpoint C again. We're touching the advanced level. We want students to be familiar with or trying to practice advanced level work. But the advanced level work, in order to be deemed by ACTFL as someone who is in the advanced level, it means that you have to be able to have conversations about new social, academic, and work-related topics, which is something that is beyond the scope of all secondary programs. Okay, so here in the district, we essentially have 3 levels of achievement when it comes to graduation in world language. The first step is the Regents Diploma. In order to earn a basic Regents Diploma, students must attain 1 credit of world language. The vast majority of our students earn that 1 credit by taking their language in 7th and 8th grade and taking the Checkpoint A exam. Once they have that, they're enter the 9th grade. Many, like I said, the vast majority of our students enter 9th grade already having that enough credit for the Regents Diploma. But we don't want that. And actually what we strive for is, and which we achieve, is that most of our students become eligible for the Advanced Regents Diploma because they have 3 credits in the same world language and they pass the Checkpoint B assessment at the 10th grade level. And something that is new, and we're actually in the 4th year of participation in the Seal of Biliteracy program. The 2 criteria for us here at Baldwin is that students must achieve at least an 85 or higher, either at the 4H, AP, or Native B level. And then they also present a Seal of Biliteracy project at the end of the year where they have to prove those 3 modes. Their interpretive, the interpersonal, and the presentational skills while researching a specific topic. And I will show you some examples coming up. So without further ado, I will stop talking and I will let the students show you what they do. This first example here goes back to the novice level. So students beginning to learn. This student is a 7th grader. And as you watch, you're gonna notice those rehearsed and practiced phrases, which is where all language begins.
¿Qué tal? Me llamo Jaden. Yo estoy bien. Yo tengo 12 años. Mi número teléfono 516. Yo tengo un hermano. Say hola. Hola. Hasta la vista.
So one thing I want to clarify is just because I'm saying rehearse, that's not a bad thing. That's actually, and what we're seeing here is that students, it's not just about that you memorized it, it's about using it correctly and in context. And one of the things that I want to highlight to you about this is that even though, you know, since we were closed in March and we were doing remote learning, World Language actually found a way to get around this by using new tools like Flipgrid. This is just an example of a student where students were given assignments to do at home, and this is what they came up with. And their students are trying to use language in context in a fun way that makes sense to them and where they're also going to learn. This is an example of a student in our middle school native program, where I mentioned before the goal is to refine skills. And one of the things that that's important to the program is that there are many dialects of Spanish. And even though we can communicate with people from different countries, one of the major goals of our program is to make sure that students are able to use standard Spanish so that they can communicate with people from different countries around the globe that are native Spanish speakers. In this assignment, the student had to show that how to properly discuss things in the past tense.
Yo doblé la ropa limpia.
Yo limpié el piso con la escoba.
Mi mamá fregó los trastes con jabón y agua. Mi mamá preparó la cena para nosotros.
Yo hice mi tarea en la computadora.
Mi hermano recoge los juguetes en el sótano. Mi papá pasa la aspiradora.
Mi hermano y yo lavamos la ropa.
Actually, one of the other things that I really love about this is that it involves the whole family. So the whole family is working together to make sure that the students are practicing their Spanish. I would like to move on to the high school level. This is an example of work towards a checkpoint B. The next two slides that I'm going to show you are a project that was done at the 3H level in Italian, and students were studying sonnets of Petrarch and Renaissance sonnets as well. And then students had to write a response to the poem using the form of sonnet. So here we're seeing all of the text that's on the slide is student generated. Which is what is the hallmark of Checkpoint B, where students are able to create their own language and their own sentences. And of course, what we're seeing here is that we're seeing the Italian culture come through, because when you study Italian, you also have to study the history and the art of Italy, which is why this teacher was teaching them about Petrarch and sonnets. This is another example of a poem that a student did, or I should say a sonnet. And the students, one of the things that I also like is that the students are able to not only be exposed to language, but again, the art and culture of the time period, or their own, what they enjoy. And actually, this is a good example because many of our students that like Italian and that take Italian and French are also very much into art. Okay, this is another example of, this comes from our French class, and the students that are taking French have gravitated to learning about French songs, and the teacher is using that as a vehicle to learn language and to practice language. And in this assignment, the students were asked to act out the lyrics to a song, and then as an added bonus, they were also asked to sing a little piece of it.
Te regarder, prends ton ego et va-t'en loin de moi. Et si tu penses que je vais m'accrocher, garde ton ego, je ne veux plus de ça.
Tu disais que tu n'aimais pas mes amis. Je crois que les problèmes venaient de toi. Tu avais semé tous ces doutes dans mon esprit. Je sais maintenant que je n'étais plus moi. Je ne voulais pas écrire de chansons, ne crois pas que ça me touche. Je voulais éviter, mais tu ne fais que m'appeler. Et moi j'ai décidé d'avancer. Tu devrais en faire de même. Ne garde pas trop d'espoir, car tu devrais savoir.
Something else worth noting here is that we know that our students use this technology at home anyway to send messages to one another. So we are using that to our advantage, and we're to engage them into doing this work. And I must say that this song is quickly becoming one of my favorites. So I'm happy to share it with you. Okay, these next few examples are at the checkpoint C level. This student happens to be in the French program also, and he was so inspired by listening to the music. And one of the things that they talk about at the AP level is that it's not just a music form, it's also a form of protest or a way to comment on social issues. And so this student decided that he wanted to do his final presentation to compare and contrast hip hop and the influence of hip hop between France and the United States. This is an example of students in our native program. These students, again, the goal for our native program is communicating in standard Spanish, communicating in advanced language that is formal. And the task in this project was actually for students to do a video resume. So to pretend that they were in the future and they were making a video resume to present. And these two young men were interviewing for jobs as doctors as surgeons at a hospital.
Vivimos en Baldwin, Nueva York, y estamos muy interesados en trabajar de cirujanos en su hospital.
Estamos muy interesados de trabajar de cirujanos en su hospital porque queremos ayudar a la gente que lo necesita.
Debido a esto, queremos enseñarle más de nuestras personalidades.
Actualmente trabajamos en un hospital y nuestras responsabilidades por ahorita son ayudar a los cirujanos con las útiles.
Antes habíamos trabajado en la escuela de niños. Y yo voy a la Universidad de Harvard.
Yo voy a la Universidad de Johns Hopkins.
Nosotros fuimos a la escuela secundaria de Baldwin.
Hemos tomado muchas clases de honores como ciencias y matemáticas.
También tomamos clases de AP como historia mundial.
Ashel y yo nos gusta jugar fútbol.
Yo juego para el equipo de Baldwin.
Yo juego para el equipo de HBC. Los dos hemos formado equipo de la escuela secundaria de Baldwin.
Tenemos muchos atributos.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, or as you've seen before, always leave room for students to show their personalities, because that's the hook to get them involved in using the language. But we see these students being able to communicate perfectly in Spanish in an intelligent way that shows that they are fully bilingual and that they would be of added value to the workforce. This presentation is a Seal of Biliteracy project from our Italian program. And the Seal of Biliteracy project that I mentioned before is what students present in order to attain the seal. And this is just the PowerPoint presentation that went along with the oral presentation. Students have to give an oral presentation to show mastery, or I should say to show proficiency at that intermediate high level. And students do their own research, they pick their own topics, and then they also write an essay. I will show you that piece in a moment, but this example shows that the student was very interested in the Amanda Knox case and decided that this is what she wanted to do her project on. So room for student interest. Other topics are social topics, controversial topics, and students choose to research it. This happens to be a topic that is very much aligned with what we need to hear about today, which is, should vaccines be something that is obligatory in society? Students did I've been sitting on these presentations for the past 3 years, and the students are very impressive at the passion that they show for their topics. Is probably the most, I guess, how should I say, I'm at a loss for words right now. It's probably the most impactful thing that I notice is that they pick such topics that they're actually interested in, and that they go through the steps to do the research. Okay, here is an example of an essay that a student produced. This topic is about whether Catalonia should be allowed to secede from the Spanish state, or whether they should remain a part of the country of Spain. As you can see, it's a full essay. It looks small, it looks little, but when you put it on paper, it's going to come out to 3 pages. And then here's an example from our Italian program. This is the student that was talking about, Amanda Knox. And this essay was about how can the media interfere with the jury, because they were doing a cultural comparison showing that in the United States, we sequester the jury, but in Italy, they don't. So lots of room for students to do academic work. And even though this is excellent, just to again put it in context, they're starting to work at the advanced level. But according to our standards, they just haven't mastered it. But that doesn't take away from the impressive level of the work that our students are doing here in Baldwin. So on this last thing that I'm going to show you is just for you to see our kids, I guess, speak to one another. Last year, we produced a video for 6th grade students to select a language. It's a 10-minute long video, but I'm just going to show you a short clip. And basically, what we did was we recruited students to tell other students why they should pick French, Italian, or Spanish to study.
I think they should pick Spanish because I feel like it's the most useful. I think it would be great to learn French and Italian too, but I feel like Spanish is going to be the most useful because you're going to see more Spanish people than French or Italian here.
Well, Italian is so much fun. Like you're learning about somewhere that's not where you're from. Well, most people. And it's just like, it's more unique than I think any other language. It can have its difficulties, but I feel like it is easier than French.
Italian's actually really fun. It has its moments where it's like, I don't really get that. But when you start getting it, you like get it. And you're like, oh my gosh, wow. Suddenly you're writing like 200 words and you're like, whoa, I didn't even know I knew that. And you start like picking at different things. It just becomes a lot of fun. Take Italian.
It's good to learn something new, and something new it could be challenging, but the French language, like I said, I will say it again, it's fun, it's hard, but it's also a great experience. Experience is nice, it's beautiful, and
oops, sorry, I didn't mean to cut it off, but this presentation will be available to you in its entirety. For you to watch the videos as you on your own time. And on that note, I would like to thank you for your attention and for the opportunity to share this information with you. I'm going to turn this back over to Dr. Cami and take any questions that the board may have.
Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Calamaris?
Great presentation. Thank you, Dr. Calamaris.
Yes, that was great. Thank you.
That was really, really great.
I really enjoyed it too. I'm so impressed, by the use, the integration of technology. I just, everybody, all the teachers in all the different disciplines are finding ways to integrate technology, and it's just so exciting, and I think it must be such a draw for the students to be able to do that. And I took foreign language when I was in school. This is definitely not the same thing at all. And I think the things that you are using as culture and cultural exchanges are not what I would have thought of. I would have thought of the more traditional, and this is certainly just as important, that they see what their contemporaries are doing, singing, thinking in other countries. So wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's more of a personal question. That song, the song that was in French, can you send us the name of that artist? Because it was actually
very nice.
You know, I will look into it because I think it's someone, yes, it's someone who covered the song, but I don't know if it's somebody famous.
Right.
But I will look into it because, as I mentioned, it's catchy, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's very catchy.
I know the song. I just couldn't. It's not a Justin Bieber song.
Yes, it is, but they made it in Italian. I mean, in French.
Okay.
I was curious.
I will find that out, and I will make sure you get that information.
Send it to us all so we can sing it at a future board meeting.
I just want to say it was a great presentation. As I'm listening to your presentation, I was thinking about when I took foreign language. I took it for when I started, it was one of the first programs at my middle school where they started at the junior high. It was like the first time. So I did it in 7th grade, I did it in 8th grade, and then I almost got to AP French, but for some reason my schedule didn't work out. And I was so bummed because I really wanted to finish. I mean, but it was just the presentation and what you guys do in the language department is fabulous. And it's nice that we have such a well, just a great program. I guess so simply said. So thank you.
I can't take the credit for it. I think it's the students and the teachers coming up with these different ideas to engage the students. So they did all the work. I just shared it with you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Comments and reports from the Board of Education. Does anyone have anything from meetings or organizations or whatever that they have attended over the last month?
I have something.
Mrs. Coles.
So, as far as the community organizations go, everything is, pretty slow and quiet right now. Nothing really to report there. I did attend the meeting of the district-wide health and safety meeting, and that was on January 5th. And the purpose of that meeting was just to discuss the changes being made, the amendments to Education Law 2801 regarding pandemic planning for the district-wide safety plan. So, they're having to add things now to the district-wide safety plan. And I also think that most of these things are covered in one of the policies that we will be approving tonight as well. Mr. Randazzo did say that basically everything that they're requiring, as far as preparedness for a pandemic, are all things that we are already doing, that we're all, pretty much included in our reopening plan and going forward from that. So we're in very good shape. It's really pretty much just technicalities that they have to cover.
Thank you. This morning, co-chaired a meeting of the Long Island Education Coalition, and we're really just setting the table for advocacy that we're going to be doing going forward in the spring. But the one topic that was raised at the end of the meeting was the whole topic of vaccines and what districts, individuals, whatever, are doing in order to get the vaccines. And I will just share with you that it is a mess. I don't think anybody is going to be surprised by this, but for all the areas of the island that reported and the districts that commented, everybody was all over the place. And the consensus was that everybody's got plans in place, but there's just simply not enough product, so that people are lining up or going to different sites. Places are making sites available, and all of that work is being done, but there just is not enough product coming down the line for there to be the kind of widespread distribution that we would all like to have. So anyway, that was our conversation this morning. All right, personnel actions report. The Board of Education approves the personnel actions report for January 13, 2020 as detailed in the Friday mailing.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Reed.
Seconded.
Seconded by Mr. Smith. Because this involves the names of individual employees, we do not discuss it in public. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The Board of Education approves the recommendations for services of the Committee on Special Education, Sub-CSE, 504 Committee, and Committee on Preschool Special Education in October, November, and December 2020, as detailed in the Friday mailing.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Reed, seconded by Mrs. Dreska. Because this involves the names of individual students, we do not discuss it in public. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The Board of Education approves the budget transfers over $10,000 from November 1st, 2020 through November 30th, 2020, as detailed in the Friday mailing.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mrs. Reed. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The Board of Education approves the amended agreement between the Baldwin Union Free School District and Industrial UI Services, LLC. This amendment reflects the addition of a professional errors and omissions clause in the contract's insurance requirements, as detailed in the Friday mailing.
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mrs. Reed. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The Board of Education approves the establishment of the per pupil tuition rate for the 2020-2021 school year for grades K-6 and grades 7-12, according to the estimated non-resident tuition report provided by the SED, as detailed in the Friday mailing. For regular education, grades K-6, $12,814, grades 7-12, $15,952. For special education, the rate is grades K-6, $41,960, grades 7-12, $45,098.
Sorry for interrupting. So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Reed,
Seconded.
seconded by Mr. Smith. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The Board of Education approves the health and welfare services contracts for 3 school districts for the 2020-2021 school year, as detailed in the Friday mailing. And I won't read all these out.
You're not? Okay. So moved.
Yes. Thank you. Moved by Mrs. Reed.
Question?
Yes.
So this is the part where the district pays for the nurses at these other schools?
Correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Correct. Other districts pay for the services.
The students who.
St. Christopher, for instance, and we do the same thing. If we have our students going to a private school elsewhere, then we pay it. It's all set for us. Okay, second. Would that be Mr. Smith?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the Board of Education approves the amendment to the 2020-2021 agreement between the Baldwin Union Free School District and the Omni Group to enroll a P3F flexible and add Vanguard, an active and enrolled P3 service provider, so that new accounts can be opened with Vanguard, as detailed in the Friday mailing.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Reed,
Seconded.
seconded by Mr. Smith. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Board of Education approves the change order SED number 2802-1003-0012-033, toilet upgrades at Baldwin Middle School. Deduct $3,861.02, which is a credit back to the district for unused allowances outlined in the contract, as detailed in the Friday mailing.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Reed, seconded by Mrs. Dreska. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Board of Education approves the contract signed by the Levittown Union Free School District, District of Residence, for the education of one student enrolled at St. Christopher School, Baldwin, as district of location. Will invoice Levittown Union Free School District for the actual cost of special education services provided for the 2019-20 school year as detailed in the Friday mailing.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Reed,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Coles. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The Board of Education approves a contract for the approved special education programs based on strategic evaluation data collection and analysis and reporting, known as SEDCAR, applications and their corresponding 10-19 child count. The per pupil allocation for the 2020-2021 grant year for students placed in a program under Section 619, that is 3 to 5 year olds, is $394, and for Section 611, 3 to 21 year olds, is $1,165. The per pupil allocation for the 2020-2021 grant year for students receiving related services only is 1/3 of the per pupil program allocation under Section 619 is $131, and for Section 611 is $388, as detailed in the Friday mailing.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Reed, seconded by Mrs. Dreska. Are there questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The Board of Education approves the calendar for the 2021-2022 school year.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Reed,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Coles. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? I'm sorry, Mrs. Reed.
It just popped in my head. Just refresh my memory. How soon will we be putting this on the website once we approve it?
We will notify staff tomorrow, and then it will go on the website.
Okay. Thank you.
Tomorrow, Friday, the latest.
Thank you.
Okay. Moved by Mrs. Reed, I believe. Second
by Mrs. Coles, I believe, right?
Yes.
Seconded by Mrs. Coles. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Board of Education approves the resolution for the reporting requirements for elected or appointed officials as detailed in the Friday mailing.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Reed, seconded by Mrs. Dreska. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now we are on to policies. The first one, the Board of Education has a second read and adopts the following policy. Policy 8131, which is on pandemic planning. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Coles,
Seconded.
seconded by Mr. Smith. Are there questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That policy is adopted. Board of Education has a first read of the following policy. Policy 8130, school safety plans and teams. We don't have to vote on that, but I have a question. Is this part of the SAVE? I mean, this is school safety plans. Is it part of our SAVE program? Is it just an update?
It's an update.
It's just an update. That's what I thought. Okay. So we bring it back next meeting for adoption.
Mhm.
Okay. Let's see. Before I do upcoming dates, does anyone have anything to discuss under other?
Can I just share something, Mrs. O'Hagan? So normally at this time of year, we would be preparing for tomorrow for the Martin Luther King celebration. The Martin Luther King celebration is done by the Concerned Parents of Baldwin. They've lost some of their members this past year. And given this pandemic, they were unable to put something together for this week. But they are working on a program for Black History Month, and they will be working in conjunction with the district's help to the extent that they need the district's help. So I just want the board and the community to know that.
Thank you, Dr. Kemi. Okay, seeing nothing under other, I would just like to read the upcoming dates. For Monday, January 18th, the schools will be closed in memory of Martin Luther King Jr. Our first budget session of the year will be Wednesday, February 3rd at 7 o'clock. It will be a virtual meeting. And our next monthly Board of Education meeting will be held on Wednesday, February 3rd at 8 o'clock. It will also be a virtual meeting. As that concludes our business, may I have a motion, please, to close the meeting? Moved by Mrs. Dreska, seconded by Mrs. Reed. I'm sorry, I can't, are you speaking? Oh, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you and good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, guys.
See you next month.